This video, I'm going to give you an in-depth guide on how to use Namor. Namor is my main character within Marvel Rivals. I love using him, and I don't think he gets played enough because he's such a good character in this game. So what we're going to do is give you some tips and in-depth on how his character actually works. I'm going to show you gameplay as well. When it comes to his main ability, which is obviously the RT or the R2 on PlayStation or whatever the mouse click is on PC, he's outputting 70 damage, which to be fair is actually pretty high in this game, especially if you're fighting against a lot of the Vanguard characters with loads of health. I've taken out tons with Namor, and the main thing here is that you can keep firing it, and this is why I prefer Namor over Hela. Now, Hela is a meta character, probably the meta character in the game, but personally, I just like the ability to keep spam firing. I think it's just really important to have that rate of fire there. When it comes to Namor's second ability, which is the L2, on the website it actually states it does 40 damage, which is incorrect, by the way. It's 100 damage he deals with the L2, which is absolutely insane, and it's good that he does do that. I wish it just regenerated a little bit quicker though, just because some of the other characters in the game have regen times of much quicker, and I think it would make him a solid choice, especially considering his abilities aren't the best. It's just that his damage output is great. So when it comes to that, obviously, like I said, 100 damage, and it is a 3-meter damage radius, so if those two characters were any closer together, they would do some splash damage as well. Then what we do have is the two little squids, that's what I tend to call them, and they output damage at 17 damage, which is not too bad actually, and 2 rounds per second, so they actually are outputting a good amount of damage, especially when there's 2 of them together. And then the other thing you do need to know as well, which is not something that's commonly known when it comes to Namor, unless obviously you've been playing with him for quite a while, is that if you put both of these squids down to deal damage and then you also use the Wrath at the same time, they fire a larger bolt at the enemy target, which is absolutely insane. And that is probably the most powerful attack Namor has, especially that you can still keep firing your main ability at the target as well. And if you're coming up against some of the tanks in the game, that is how you're going to get them out in a couple of shots, man. That is the main attack. The last ability before we move on to some additional tips is that you can use the shield ability, and then you can hold on to his descent as well, and this protects you for a couple of seconds. So one tip with Namor is that you obviously need to be accurate. That is kind of the main thing here, and that pretty much goes for a lot of the characters that deal a good amount of damage actually, especially like Winter Soldier and stuff. So I'm going to show you my aim settings, and obviously you'll see how this works actually in a practical game as well. But you can copy these as you like pretty much, because I'm not going to go over each and every detail of this. The only thing I do want to mention is that if you want to change your dead zones just because of stick drift or whatever, then please do that. But everything else you can copy here. This is the full aim settings for Namor. If you don't like the settings, that is completely up to yourself, because not a lot of people like using S-curve. I've just came from first person shooters, so I prefer S-curve. I just prefer it that way. And then I am using a circle reticle with no animation. Getting on into some gameplay now, I'm going to be going over a couple of additional tips for Namor. Now, first thing, his movement's not insane, so you want to make sure you're constantly moving and just hold in that R2, because you can fire full auto anyways. And just keep firing, and you're not having to reload or wait for anything like that. And just make sure you're a hard target to hit, so just make sure you're jumping a lot, because that is what I do in my gameplay, and it helps out a ton. The other thing is to know when to use the shield ability. Now, the shield ability is very useful. It takes a while to regenerate though, and you want to use it either to hold down an objective if your team is waiting to come back and join you. You've only got a couple of seconds, remember, so obviously you want to use it kind of sparingly here and there. And it's good to also, when you're low health, to wait for a healer to heal you. So just jump in the air, wait for that healer to hopefully spot you and give you some extra heals to get your health back up so you can get back in the fight again. So that is the way to use the shield ability. Now, like I said with the movement stuff, you want to make sure you're actually moving your left stick in line with your aim. You don't always need to aim with your right stick if you're on controller, by the way, and that way you can hit a couple more extra shots. It's finer adjustments with your left stick than it is trying to keep moving your right analog stick all the time. And that pretty much goes for any player, to be honest, but for Namor, it's particularly important in my opinion. Then when it comes to kind of the range you want to be at when you're using Namor, you can use him at a kind of longer distance. Obviously, there's a fall off with his spear, so just keep that in mind. But in general, you want to kind of be at that medium range, around about 20-30 meters away from the fight. That is the sweet spot for using Namor. And he's going to be the best at that range because you're not super up close where you're going to be coming up against some melee characters, because you get absolutely decimated by melee characters if you're using Namor, by the way. And I've been destroyed by magic and Iron Fist a ridiculous amount of times, so just keep that in mind. You're not going to be able to kind of deal damage or track them as fast enough to kill them with the spear. It's just not going to work. And that is kind of the distance you want to stay at with Namor. Now, you can fire shots at long range, that definitely does work, so as long as you're not coming up against a Hawkeye, you're pretty much good, to be honest, to fire shots at long range as well. So that is the range you want to be playing Namor at. And then another really good thing about Namor is that if you do have a healer or some way of getting a damage buff with Namor, he's going to output a ton of damage, man. That damage buff makes you absolutely insane. I know Hela's good, but Namor being able to fire those shots constantly without stopping, if you have that player behind you and I have a healer in my team, I think that is the best way to play this character, and he's going to be such a good character if he gets a slight buff to even the regen times on some of his abilities. And then make sure you are using the 2 squids and then firing the L2 at the larger characters, larger health characters like Groot or Hulk or whoever you're playing against, because that's going to get them deleted super quick. And also that's like auto aim anyway, because they're dealing damage and almost 20 damage a shot, as long as no one kills them pretty quick, but they only have 100 health, so just keep that in mind. But like I said, that is the best way to get out the bigger characters. Stay at around about 30 to 40 meters distance. You can fire shots at longer ranges if you want, and just make sure you're a hard target to hit. Those are the best tips I can give you for Namor. Solid character, by the way, and I think a lot of people should be using him. And that is pretty much the video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe. We're going to go over more guides for more characters as well. And thank you very much for watching.